Lazar did say he had an idea about my future career. His ideas are always good. What on earth can this idea be about? What indeed? Lazar sure has been gone a long time. I wonder what's taking him so long to set up this next batch of movies. I have a good feeling about this batch. I think that my search may be ending, and I'll finally discover what I want to do with my life. Sometimes it's hard waiting for things, but when they are this important, patience is its own reward. Jingles, what a time I had finding those films. They were buried in a box at the bottom of a pile of other boxes. It took a while, but I finally found the films I want to show you. I've got them all set up, and they are ready to screen. Since they are both about the printed word, I figured I'd show them to you back to back, without interruption. This way you can immerse yourself in books and printing over the next few minutes. That sounds great, Lazar. These films are about books? How so? The first film is about printing. Specifically, how newspapers are made. I know of your fascination with words, and thought this might be a good lead-in to the film I really wanted you to see. It's the second film about librarians. I know how you love words, books, and reading. I've gone to the library with you enough times. I've seen how big your eyes get when you find a book that interests you. I think this may be the career for you. You'll be able to help people learn, research, and improve themselves, all the while maintaining your own love for books by helping to grow a library's collection. Are you ready to watch the films, Jingles? Am I ever? I can't wait. Let's watch them now, Lazar. Look towards the view screen and see if you are meant to lead the life of a librarian.
The art attributed more to man's progress than any other art. By means of printing, the fund of knowledge accumulated through the ages is available to everyone, rich and poor alike. Printing is essential to all education. All the other arts rely on it. Religious movements depend on it. Business could not function without it, nor could government. Because of the need for printed matter in practically all of man's activities, printing now ranks fourth among the nation's great industries. The wide variety of products of the press and the demand for a constant supply requires the efforts of many skilled persons in printing firms ranging in size from the small one-man establishment to large plants employing hundreds of workers. Printing as a vocation attracts many young men and women because it offers real opportunities for steady work, good pay, and advancement. The trade has several branches and numerous allied industries. The most familiar branch, letterpress printing, has three distinct types of work. These are, first, composition, the preparation of the type or other matter to be printed for the presses. Second, press work, the actual printing of the composed matter on paper or some other substance. And third, bindery work, the folding or joining together of the printed sheets into various forms so that they may be sent to the public. In the composing room of a good-sized printing firm, the duties are divided among several employees, specializing in various phases of the work. The copy for jobs to be printed goes first to the markup man. The markup man must have a thorough knowledge of the art of printing. He decides what styles and sizes of type will produce an attractive result. He indicates the parts to be set by hand compositors and those to be set by machine operators. Although a great part of today's type is set mechanically, hand compositors are employed by all large commercial printing plants, newspapers, and publishing houses. Hand compositors usually set the large type, called display line, used in advertisements and other printed matter. Hand composition offers opportunities for artistic expression. Compositors who have the ability to create original ideas are highly paid craftsmen. The work requires manual dexterity, good eyesight, and thoroughness. Linotypes and other typesetting machines are used for the part of the copy called straight matter, consisting of many lines of the same length and size of type. The linotype operator manipulates a keyboard to assemble lines of characters, which come in contact with molten type metal to produce lines or slugs of type. These slugs are molded in the length required by the job. They are the right height for the presses, and the words are spaced correctly in the line. Linotype operators must work speedily and accurately, and be efficient in spelling, punctuation, word division, and printer's arithmetic. Some printing firms have monotype machines, which consist of two separate units, the keyboard and a casting machine. When the monotype keyboard operator presses the keys, punches driven by compressed air perforate a paper ribbon at the top of the machine. When the operator finishes, the ribbon is removed and placed in the casting machine. The perforated paper controls the movements of the machine, causing it to produce individual type characters set in properly spaced lines. There are other kinds of typesetting machines, but the monotype and linotype are typical examples. When a page of type has been set either by machine or by hand, it is placed in a small proof press and printed on a large piece of paper. This leaves wide margins around the type where the proofreader indicates mistakes to be corrected. It is the proofreader's responsibility to find all errors in spelling, punctuation, and typography. Large plants employ persons, usually women, who do nothing but proofread. But in some shops, this job may be done by the foreman or head operator. After mistakes have been corrected, all the type and engraved plates for a single page must be assembled. In large printing firms, this work is done by specialists called makeup men. In the lockup department, workers called stone men assemble many pages of type into single forms. But there are several different ways in which the matter to be printed is prepared for the presses. It all depends on the kind of press to be used. Platen presses are used on small jobs, such as letterheads or handbills. Some of these presses are hand-fed. On other small job presses, an ingenious device feeds the paper automatically. There are automatic cylinder presses for long runs of small work. In offset presses, the matter to be printed is first impressed from a zinc plate to a special rubber roller, then transferred to the paper. And for printing magazines, books, and newspapers, there are immense high-speed rotary presses which, printing both sides of the paper in one operation, turn out thousands of folded copies per hour. But no matter what kind of press is used, a pressman must be a skilled, conscientious worker. He is in charge of expensive machinery and materials, and the quality of the work produced depends on his ability. Before a job can be printed, the pressman must make ready, that is, compensate for inequalities of pressure of the paper against the plate. This is done by building up portions of the impression surface with thin pieces of paper cut to the proper shape so that the pressure is equalized. A pressman must know how to adjust his press to all kinds of paper and secure mechanical accuracy throughout. He must have an eye for intensity of color and see that the inking is uniform at all times. And pressmen should be able to supervise assistants, for in many plants, An experienced man may be responsible for the proper functioning of several presses operated by apprentices. The printing trades acquire most of their new workers through apprenticeship or training on the job. Some vocational schools offer training which can be taken during apprenticeship or previous to it. Vocational school training alone does not always produce skilled workers, but it does enable a person to decide whether he is truly interested and suitable for the work. And the course of training is arranged to give the student a good background in printing. Usually a student starts with hand composition because all of the fundamental principles of printing are derived from it. Through a series of prepared lessons, these principles are thoroughly fixed in the student's mind. The lessons include instruction in spelling, word division, proofreading, punctuation, and printer's arithmetic. After completing the hand composition course, a student is eligible for work in the press room. Here, he begins his study on a small hand-fed job press. After mastering it, he is advanced to the small automatic presses. But there is a great deal to be learned before a student can assume the responsibility of operating the large cylinder presses. Above all, he must thoroughly understand the mechanism. Thus, press work is particularly fitted for young men who like to work with machinery. Students studying to become linotype operators must have mechanical knowledge too, but here the emphasis is on speed and accuracy. Usually, anyone who has mastered the typewriter can learn to operate the linotype keyboard, but he must also learn composition. A student who successfully completes the course of study in some phase of printing at a vocational school is prepared to enter the printing industry on a basis leading to worthwhile remuneration. The chances of securing employment are normally good, for there are thousands of large printing establishments in the country and many small shops and newspapers. And work in the printing trade is not seasonal. It goes on the year round, regardless of sunshine or rain. Working conditions are generally satisfactory as to housing, hygiene, and hours. If you think you would be interested in printing as a vocation, investigate its possibilities and prepare yourself accordingly for the phase of the work for which you are best suited. The printing industry needs young men and women in its composing rooms where thoughts and ideas are fashioned into type. It needs mechanically minded young men in its press rooms to operate the intricate machinery. It is a growing industry, high on the list of those offering stability of wages and employment, a high proportion of salaried positions, and real opportunities for advancement. Perhaps you will find a place for your tastes and talents in printing, a vocation offering splendid possibilities for your life work.
Your life work.
These racks and shelves contain a lot of books, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions. How do you feel about them? Do they mean something to you? Are they your friends? Have you a real love of books and learning? You do? That's good. Now, do you like people? And do people like you? Do you like all kinds of people? The young as well as the old. People in all stations of life. You do? That's wonderful. Because when you have these two important qualifications, love for books and love for people, you may well consider the vocation of a librarian, a vocation that gives full enjoyment to the librarian and radiates it to the public. The public, that may consist of children with an awakening interest in literature, or professional men searching for special scientific information, or the blind, who do their reading by touch. or people of rural areas whose library is brought to them on wheels. Yes, there are many aspects to this worthwhile occupation, all of vital importance in the nation's life. Let us consider some of the various types of libraries and start with the greatest of all, the Library of Congress, which is located in Washington, D.C. One of the largest in the world, this library, established in 1800, is relatively new when compared with those of some European countries. Serious scholars may use its excellent facilities and wonderful collection of more than 5 million books and manuscripts. This truly national library extends research and other services to members of Congress, the government departments, and to the public. The many different libraries in our country have various functions depending on their location. Each one has to answer a specific need. Therefore, a modest rural library must be different from a city library, offering a multitude of services to meet the needs of a great variety of persons. The specialized library in an industrial plant is different from the one owned by a law firm. But although libraries differ, basically the task of the individual librarian remains the same, bringing books and people together. The largest number of librarians are found in 5 general classifications. First, we may mention the catalogers, who usually work behind the scenes. They organize and interpret library collections for you readers. Here is an illustration of what proper cataloging can accomplish.
I'm looking for a book on television, but I forgot.
Do you know the author?
No, I don't, and I don't know the title either. But it's a blue book, and it kind of gives the whole story. You know.
I think we can help you.
This boy's problem was not an unusual one. He did not know the author's name, nor did he remember the title of the book. But he knew the subject, television. Because the cataloger did a good job, the book was easily located, and the boy was further encouraged to use the library facilities. Proper book evaluation and careful research render a great service to the patrons. Second, there are the reference librarians who help readers in their search for special information.
Through your books on China, can you help me identify the dating of some old Chinese bronzes?
I'm starting on a new project on radar. Could you compile a bibliography on this subject for me?
The reference librarians locate various materials through their familiarity with the contents of the library, a very important money and time-saving service to the public. Third, we have the circulation librarian who organizes and supervises the distribution of books. By the way, this job belongs to a classification which does not necessarily require college training. Fourth, we have librarians who serve the young people, much the same as adults are served, except that the children's levels of interest are emphasized. Each child is looked upon as an individual whose reading habits are in the formative period. Fifth, there are the school librarians who contribute to the educational programs of their schools. College and university libraries employ special staffs for the work of research, cataloging, reference, and circulation, just as do the large public libraries. The large public schools generally employ special librarians to assist the pupils in finding suitable books. During free reading periods, the librarian attempts to direct the young reader's interest into approved and worthwhile channels, a challenging and rewarding job. In the smaller schools, the library is usually under the supervision and direction of a teacher librarian. Pupils working during free periods generally handle circulation. However, under such a plan, the library personnel changes from period to period with little opportunity for individuals to really understand library work. Up till now, we have discussed the jobs that must be done in every library. So far, we mentioned the catalogers, the reference librarians, the circulation, children, and school librarians. At times, they do their share in the reviewing of new books, evaluating and eventually buying them. This is done with one single purpose in mind, the improvement of their service to the people in their community and the country at large. In library work, there exist a number of positions that require special competence and preparation. Take, for example, the administrator of a large library, often a highly paid executive. You'll understand that this person needs a great capacity for leadership, a high degree of vision and imagination, and a thorough understanding of all phases of procedures in his organization. Then there are the specialists in subject resources, particularly in scientific, technical, and social science fields, who render bibliographic and reference service to public, university, and special libraries. Extension librarians for county and regional libraries who understand the social organization of rural communities and the objectives of rural leaders pioneer in a steadily expanding field. Librarians in adult education, including readers, advisors, community workers, and group leaders, provide special service for adults. Public relations specialists interpret the library's work to the public by personal contact or by means of newspapers, radio, films, or other methods of public relations. Specially trained librarians are always developing newer resources and educational uses of microfilm, motion picture film, and other visual materials, such as posters and pamphlets. Music scores for classical and popular compositions are available to music lovers. Phonograph records are also found in many modern libraries. Hospital librarians provide special service for patients and hospital personnel. For instance,
did you get me that material on the sternocleidomastoid and the zygomatic head of the quadratus levi superioris?
Yes, Doctor. Here it is. I didn't mind the research on them, but the pronunciations really had me stumped for a bit.
The professional librarian is required to have a college degree and to have attended a special library school. Although librarians in small libraries are not required to be library school graduates, they must have had some special training. Reference work required in high school courses in the sciences, both social and physical, will be especially helpful in acquainting you with the library. Study the work of your school librarian, and perhaps you can secure permission to assist. If you become a librarian, you will find that there can be great variety and interest, as well as security in this career. Your abilities will be challenged, but you will be rewarded with real pleasure from your work, salaries comparable with those of similar professions, and opportunities for advancement. You will derive satisfaction from a knowledge that your work is vital and essential in forming the kind of world in which you want to live. When you investigate the field carefully, you will find that there is a need for thousands of trained librarians. Contact the library schools and the American Library Association. They are able to give you valuable advice. If you have the personal qualifications, librarianship may well become your life work.
Lazar, I found both careers fascinating.
Really? What did you like about the world of newspapers and printing?
Well, both printing and library work appeal to my intellectual side. When it comes to printing, I could really see myself helping to print the words that the entire world will later on read. Knowing that I'm helping in the mass sharing of knowledge would really be a worthwhile career. Also, it does not have the pitfalls of broadcasting. I'm not in front of a camera or a microphone. I'm behind a desk where nobody can see me. My world, for the most part, is still my own. Newspaper work seems so exciting. Finding out the news as it happens, printing it for the world to read as well.
What about library work? Did that interest you as much?
Indeed it did. Just as with printing, I could easily see myself, years from now, working in a library as a librarian, a director, maybe someone on the library board, helping people to find books that interest them for entertainment, or helping children on a research project. I'd help curate the library's collection, help to make it larger, better, so that future generations could have the benefit of knowledge about books, words, and writing. How I'd love to someday be an old man, helping a new generation discover what I've known throughout my entire life, that if you want to go somewhere far away, you don't need to get on a bus or a plane. All you have to do is open a book and let your imagination go to work. It seems that you've narrowed your career choice down to 2 things, Jingles. Would you like some time to think? I'd appreciate it, Lazar.
All right. Well, you make your choice. I'll show our friends at home one more career choice. I had considered it for showing it to you, Jingles, but once I learned that you didn't want a job in the media, I figured you wouldn't be interested in this film. Some of our friends at home may be, though. While Jingles decides on his final career choice, here is a film about a career in photography. If you like taking pictures, it's a film that you'll enjoy.
Photography is often called the universal hobby. It is a means of creative expression within the reach of people in all walks of life, and it speaks a language that everyone can understand. The camera lens is a mechanical eye, seeing everything and recording everything. It captures actions that will never again be repeated. Used with a microscope, it records the strange activities of tiny organisms. With the X-ray, it reveals the structure or function of hidden things. If objects move too fast to be seen clearly by the unaided eye, the camera slows them down so that the action may be studied. In contrast, hours of action may be compressed into seconds. Photography, in one form or another, exerts a great influence on our daily lives. Photographs bring news reports to life. They strengthen the appeal of advertising. They provide entertainment for millions and are an aid to education. Photography as a hobby can lead to photography as a career, and often does. But professional work calls for a lot more than just snapping pictures here and there. For instance, consider the portrait photographer. To make a real success in this highly competitive field, the cameraman must be a practical psychologist who understands the personality of each individual he photographs. People want to look their best, in fact, better than they look. So the photographer must know all the tricks of lighting and of posing the subject. To get good negatives, he must master the chemistry of photography. He should also know how to retouch negatives to remove wrinkles and blemishes. If he can't do this work himself, part of his income will go for pay to a hired retoucher. Making the prints is a most important step in portrait work. And good printing can only be learned through long practice and study. All the previous work and the success of the whole job depends on the final print. If it pleases the subject and her friends, it may lead to more business. And a portrait man must keep busy if he's to make money. The illustrative photographer's work calls for a well-equipped studio and a great amount of skill and ingenuity. Each picture must be tailor-made to the specification outlined by the art director of the advertising agency requesting it. An illustrative photographer must be imaginative, for he never knows what sort of advertising picture he will be asked to make on short notice. Jobs requiring reproduction of outdoor settings or large interior scenes can only be handled by those who have big studios. But there are many advertising photographs which can be made on tabletops or in close quarters. Making this type of picture gives the smaller operator a chance in the field of illustrative photography. The commercial photographer is often called a jack of all trades. He must be prepared to go anywhere to take pictures, in addition to those he makes in his studio. Today, he may be shooting the exterior of a building for a real estate operator. Tomorrow, he may be in a factory making a series of pictures showing a manufacturing process. Yes, the commercial man's pictures are likely to include anything and everything. Machinery, food, poultry, buildings, and so on. Because of this great variety of work, the commercial photographer's field tends to overlap those of the portrait man and the illustrative photographer. Some of his shots may even be used by the press. But basically, press or news photography is a field in itself. Contrary to popular opinion, a press photographer's life is not just one big thrill after another. He does shoot exciting scenes from time to time, but such events are the exception. Most of his work is routine in nature, consisting mainly of pictures of people and places connected with the news. Nevertheless, the news photographer must work expertly at high speed and know what constitutes a news picture. Similar to press photography is newsreel work, but it is difficult to enter as a cameraman because the field is overcrowded. This also is true of theatrical motion picture production. In addition, it takes years of training and experience to master the complicated cameras, the lighting problems, and the use of special effects. And in spite of these rigid requirements, Hollywood has more cameramen than opportunities. But there are other jobs in motion picture production, not only for the theater, but also in educational, industrial, and other non-theatrical films. There are many small producers specializing in this type of picture. The whole field of photography offers numerous positions that do not call for actual camera work, but provide valuable training to those who want to become photographers. Laboratory or darkroom assistants and technicians have an opportunity to learn how to mix chemicals, to develop films, to retouch negatives, and to make prints. Studio assistants and cameramen's helpers have a chance to learn the practical side of professional work. They become familiar with equipment which the average amateur doesn't use. They learn how lights are placed to achieve the balance between highlight and shadow which is necessary for all good pictures. Working as a salesman in a photo supply store is another way to gain experience. The best salesmen are those who know photography and are able to answer the customer's many requests for advice. Establishing your own camera shop or photo finishing service is a possibility for one who learns the business and has the necessary capital. Another possibility is working for one of the big manufacturers of photographic equipment and supplies. These factories employ thousands of persons, from machine operators to highly trained engineers and chemists. Persons who are interested in photography can start it as a hobby to be followed during spare time while holding a job or attending school. Some schools have photography departments and camera clubs. Many students acquire practical experience by making pictures for the school paper and yearbook. You can learn a great deal by reading the many excellent books and magazines on the subject. And there are numerous exhibitions where you can learn by studying the work of well-known photographers. There are private schools of photography in the large cities offering complete courses of training to prepare you for any type of professional still work. You may find that you prefer to photograph a certain type of subject. Many photographers owe their success to specialization. It might be still life, babies, animals, aerial views, scenics, railroads, medicine, or fashions. There is almost no end to special subjects, and some amateurs have made their hobby pay by selling prints to photo syndicates or to magazines and newspapers interested in a particular type. Picture editors on the staffs of publications are always on the lookout for good pictures. And here, too, is another job for the person who knows photography, the position of picture editor. This work is open to both men and women whose background and training fit the photographic and journalistic requirements of certain publications. The photo engraving departments of publications and printing concerns offer still another type of work. Thus, the field of photography is broad enough to provide opportunities to thousands of persons with various aptitudes, interests, and educational backgrounds. New applications for photography are constantly being discovered, and new materials and tools are being produced. Just what place you might take in this growing industry depends on your abilities and inclination. But if you have a sincere interest in photographic work, it would be worthwhile to investigate the field carefully. Some phase of photography may become your life work.
Thank you, Lazar, for all your help. I never could have walked this path, learned of all the possibilities this world presents, and come to a final decision without your help. You are a true friend.
It's been my pleasure, Jingles. So, what have you decided? Will you enter into a career about printing, or will you work towards becoming a librarian?
A librarian, definitely. I want to be able to help shape young minds, just as you have done for me today. The thought of being around books for the rest of my life really makes me happy. It gives me hope that each day will be better than the last. I'll always wonder when I wake up what new books I'll come across. As I lay in bed, I'll review all the words I've read. It's this life that I want for myself. I'm sure of it.
You'll make a fine librarian someday, Jingles. Of that I am sure.
I am going to get a start on things right now. I'm off to the library to do some research on how to become a librarian. Would you like to join me, Lazar?
We lions are kings, but just because we are kings, that doesn't make us good rulers. The more we know, the more we read, the better we can rule. I have a feeling both you and I will be making use of the public library a lot, now and for many years to come. Let's go, Jingles.
Thank you.